we all know your history in the National Hockey League. And truthfully, you went out and got a coach that you played for, that you obviously had a great deal of respect for. Not that you are alone. We all do with Mike. And then a guy who was a president slash coach slash general manager of the New Jersey Devils, who you also played for. I'm wondering about the thought process in getting to that. Was it obvious to you? Did you recognize this in the early days, or did this kind of just come to you over time?
Well, first off, hi guys, how are you?
We're good, thanks.
First and foremost, it was about finding who I thought were the right people and the right fit and the best people for this job. And I think in my short history here, the one thing that I really haven't done is I haven't just gone out and surrounded myself with a bunch of buddies of mine and friends of mine. And but if you've been in the game as long as if you've been in the game for a long time, you do end up crossing paths with people and having relationships with them. And I did not know Kyle Dubas before I hired him. I hardly knew Mark Hunter at all.
Right.
But I had heard from people that I trusted that they were rising stars and hard workers and good team players. And same with Brandon Pridham, who really does a great job for us managing our cap. I knew him from the NHL. We didn't have a strong relationship, but I knew the quality of his work. So Babcock, I wasn't alone in thinking that he was a great coach and we'd be great in this city with a challenge so great as this one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just thought, when I read that or heard that Lou was stepping down from GM and moving to the president position, I was looking for a general manager. I was looking for a GM that maybe wasn't interested in a 4, 5, 6-year deal. And I was also looking for somebody with some NHL experience to complement the group that I had assembled. I was proud of the group that I had assembled. If a critic wanted to point at one thing and say we lacked, it was some experience. So my goal was always to find the best person, but certainly if I had a young person and an experienced person, and they were both equally adept at doing the job, I would have. I think the experience would have been the tiebreaker. So I reached out to the Devils management and I asked for permission to talk. I think they were shocked that Lou, whether or not Lou would even consider it, and I just started a conversation, and that was several weeks ago, and it cooled off at times, but I stayed with it. And there were times where I had to back off because I could tell, knowing Lou and knowing that he was he'd been with one organization, I knew that you couldn't press too hard at times. And he had to come to this decision on his own. And make a long story short, we were able to get him done yesterday.
I'm wondering what went through your mind when you contemplated even calling Lou. What made you think that maybe this was the small window of opportunity that maybe this guy might say yes?
Well, I think the one thing I wanted to appeal to him is, and in some ways it's the same way I tried to appeal to Mike. I know certain types of individuals are just not I want to put my feet up on a coffee table types of guys. And, there are certain types of individuals where you don't describe a job or you don't underscore the difficulty of a job that's in front of them. You actually present it as big as the mountain that you see it, and you appeal to their sense of challenge. And I just, in spite of the fact of what I was reading out of New Jersey, I just knew that there was a burning desire in Lou to compete. And I had seen him at Board of Governor meetings while I was with the NHL, general manager meetings while I was with the NHL, and then again while I was with the Maple Leafs. And this did not look like a guy that was slowing down to me, and it did not look like a guy that was losing his competitive fire. So I could have got laughed off the phone, but
it's only a phone call, right?
It's worth a phone call.
Well, yeah. So if they don't hire Shiro, do you even call Lou Lamoriello? I mean, I know it's theoretical, but what do you think?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I like dealing too much in hypotheticals. I'm not really sure. The point is, he in some ways there was a little bit of a door that might have been open,
Right.
And to the owners' credit, New Jersey, they didn't want to lose him, and I don't think they thought they were going to, but yet, out of respect for Lou, they gave him the opportunity to at least talk to me, and I think to quote Lou, the only thing that we really accomplished with that first conversation was maybe he was intrigued, and that was and to me that was a good enough first step.
Right. Michael?
Brendan, you mentioned in that answer there that you were looking for someone with NHL experience to kind of round out your portfolio, if you want to put it that way. Not that you call people portfolio, but and yet you didn't want someone who was looking for a 4, 5, 6 year deal. Why?
Well, I take that back. I guess there were different scenarios that I could have gone with. I was interested in well, I probably shouldn't say, because there are people that are in other organizations, and I might get myself in trouble with tampering. But there were some other people that I was interested in that maybe were starting out in their career, or at a younger point in their career. That was one scenario. Most of those guys aren't coming to Toronto unless they're getting a 5 or 6 year deal.
Sure.
And then there were situations a little bit similar to the one that Pittsburgh has done with Jim Rutherford, where you bring in a senior guy to sort of mentor the group and sort of see them through a transition. That was another option. And the other option was just going with the current situation that we had and just sort of doing it, learning on the fly, as we go along. And I think we did a pretty good job this summer. I'm proud of the summer we had. I thought that Mark Hunter was fantastic at the draft, as was Kyle Dubas. I thought that July 1st was that week was great in that it's a time when sometimes you can help your club, but maybe the biggest thing we avoided, which happens to some clubs, is you hurt your club on July 1st, and we didn't do that. We're at this point now, for the first time in a long time, we don't have our noses pressed right up against the salary cap ceiling. We have the ability to be buyers and not necessarily have to be sellers. And I thought that they all did a great job. I guess what you're really trying to get at is I see potential in some of the people that we have here internally to possibly do this at some point one day, and I wanted to leave that option there for them down the road.
With Leaf President Brendan Shanahan. When Lou was on with us, Brendan, he mentioned that Mike Babcock was among those that he talked to before making this decision. I'm wondering if you talked to Mike before you called Lou the first time, or at least early in the process, given that it's not backwards, but it's not generally how things are conducted, where you go hire the coach and then go hire the general manager. Where did Mike fit in?
Well, I was in the unique position to be able to know who I was speaking to and not necessarily have to tell either of them as much information as I had. Only enough to satisfy myself and know that there was a great comfort between the two men in their respect for one another and the jobs that they would do. So, I didn't tell Mike that I was pursuing Lou Lamoriello, but I think I got from him and just some conversations, and you bump into people at the draft and you have conversations, and New Jersey's table was near ours, and I saw Mike and Lou having a couple conversations, and you hear people talk about respect and how much they think of someone. So I was privy to more information than either of them, and I was satisfied enough that this would have been was going to be a good marriage if Mike and Lou were working together one day.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because, every workplace is kind of different, and we all know that an employer would always invariably want two people who are going to work together to get along and respect each other and be on the same page at least some of the time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is that as important in the structure that you've built now, that these two guys will work together?
I think it's important. I think it was important for me to know that Lou had a ton of respect for Mike Babcock, and you know, it just gets expressed through conversation. Where Lou came up to me at one point and said, you know, I love what you did with the head coach, and I think he's fantastic. And similar conversations I had with Mike. Now, what I've talked about since I've been here is a vision for how this organization would work and how the group would think together and sort of lean on one another. And that was very important for me to continue to describe that environment to Lou so that he knew with his eyes wide open exactly what he was walking into. And so anybody that's being hired here, and as I said at the end of the season press conference, when some people said, well, you know, it's a little bit unorthodox that the GM doesn't hire the coach or GM doesn't bring all his buddies with him, I said, that's true, and that's valid, and some guys won't be for us, and we won't be for them. And Lou happened to be a guy that liked the people that we had in place and is probably a lot more progressive than people give him credit for. He was comfortable in his relationship with me. It's a little bit different that the guy he drafted 28 years ago, he now reports to. But such is the cyclical life of hockey. And, you know, one day I'll be asking William Nylander for a job or something like that.
Brendan, before you joined us, we had Lou on, and Bob accused him of kidnapping you at one point and leaving you by the side of the road.
No, I didn't accuse him of that. I said there was a story out there that this happened when Brendan was 18 years old.
And the real point, I guess, that's relevant, Lou denied it. If you want to correct the record, that's fine. But the point is for a moment there, it seemed believable. And I guess what I'm asking is you've known this guy. To me, Lou Lamoriello is simply a legend. I have no firsthand experience of what exactly makes him legendary. And he raised you, you've played for him, now he's working for you. I asked this question of Lou too. He wouldn't tell me. Give us a little bit of an example of what makes Lou Lou.
Well, I think it's so difficult to, it's like, what makes you or what makes Bob. It's, it's like, it's very difficult to encapsulate an entire person with a few quips for a little radio interview. But, he is, because he is a complicated guy and he's an interesting guy. But probably the biggest consistency with him is his belief in a team first structure, and something that he used to say, and I mentioned it when I was being inducted in the Hall of Fame, that I had learned when I was in New Jersey, is that the crest on the front of the sweater is more important than the name on the back of the sweater. And with team success can come a whole lot of individual accolades and success presently and later in life. And what I look back on fondly now are winning championships. I don't look back on individual trophies, or not that I won many of them, but what you remember is, and I've said this before to individual athletes, as great as tennis players are and as golfers are and boxers, I feel sorry sometimes for individual athletes that they don't get an opportunity to win something with a group of teammates and what that feels like. Like I watched the Canadian men's baseball team win the gold medal the other day in the Pan Am Games, and it makes you jealous and remember what it was like to see that sort of sea of humanity of guys jumping on each other like that and sharing that same feeling of working as a team. So for me, that's the biggest thing that Lou brings is the team first mentality.
The jokes are, you hear the Kool-Aid line or the Godfather line. I mean, is he a scary guy? How does he get that across? Is 3 years long enough to kind of bring that culture, to build that culture?
Well, I think that it's the start, and we'll see where we are 3 years from now. I mean, it's nothing is set in stone, This is hockey. Things, as I said, the vision doesn't change, but the plans sometimes do. So, is it enough time? We'll see. It's a great start. We can't necessarily always project what we're going to look like in 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. But what is it in our control is what we're doing right now, and I feel fortunate with the team of people that, I read somewhere once, like if you're a really good executive, you do your best to make sure you're the dumbest guy in the room you've assembled. And I can say that I've done a pretty good job of putting myself in a room full of hockey executives that I really look up to, and I'm in awe of, whether they're older or younger than me.
Last question that I have, at least. Is this the last piece of your management puzzle?
I hope so. It's time. It was. I joked around a little bit with some people, some colleagues in hockey that I would bump into at the draft, and they'd see me with the bags under my eyes and say, "How's the summer going?" I said, "Well, remind me never to do that at the end of a season again." But it's. We've done some other things here that might not get the same fanfare that we're very proud of. What we've done with the Marlies and the coaching staff with the Marlies and our development system, because that's going to be so important. Our sports science department that we think is, going to be the best in the NHL. These are all the little things that we want to do, and look, then the on ice product's gonna have to get better, and that takes time. We need more players. We need more from our current players, and we know, as Mike Babcock said, pain is coming. Like, it's as much as we're doing right now, we haven't won a single game, and we haven't. I think we've made our management team better, and we've made some good decisions with our hockey team, but there's still some pain coming. This is a process that will take time, and we're prepared for that. And I think our fans in our city are prepared for that, and I think that our ownership is prepared for that. So we have a good group here. Some people ask, how does this work? And like, we had a general manager last year. It works very much the same. He's just got a different name. We will find a way to make this work. And I'm just excited that Lou has put his name and joined this group to become a part of it.